2021 FASFA. That is extremely hard for us to say that year combo, so if we mess up, bear with us. We want you to feel comfortable. Who do I include in my household size? How do I do my FSA ID? Taxes for 2018, what do I input? We want you guys to gain that knowledge. But we're also going to give you helpful tips and then your next steps after your FAFSA is completed. I think that it's great to walk away with that knowledge as well. And also potential aid types that you might see on your award letter, what those mean. So you guys can be kind of prepared for those, again, next steps. So a little bit about us. We're not doing a traditional presentation, so we wanted to give you guys who we are here. Again, I'm Ashley Johns. A little bit about me, I got into financial aid when I was at Western Washington University. I was there as a work-study student, which we will talk about what that is, for 3 years in their financial aid office. So probably how I would say 90% of financial aid advisors get into that is they somehow were a work-study. But what we do is we really award students, determine what their eligibility would be, advise them if they have questions throughout the process. So know that your financial aid office is kind of always there. They're going to guide you. We're here to help you. That's without you guys, we wouldn't have a job. So always reach out to those financial aid officers.
Yeah, I'm Danielle again, and I've been in financial aid for 5 years. Coming up this December, I also was a work study in this same financial aid department. I went from work study to part-time to full-time, and here I am 5 years into this, and I review files, review eligibility. I'm over our loan department and over our disbursements to pay tuition and fees and get money out to students. So that's a little bit of our background.
All right. We want to plug Spokane Falls Community College because we work here, we love it here, but we're also students here. So a little bit about our college is we are traditionally that liberal arts transfer college. So a lot of students come to us to receive AA degree and then transfer to that 4-year university. We also have professional technical degrees. So we have, I think, physical therapy assistant, audio engineering, graphic design, just to name a few. So we do have those here at our campus. But probably most exciting about campus right now is our newer bachelor's degrees. I believe we've had them for 4 years now, going into the 4th year. And we have an applied management bachelor's degree, a cybersecurity bachelor's degree, and also an information systems and technology. So those are some exciting things. And I do see that we got a question on the chat line. Can you still complete your 2019-2020 FAFSA? Yes. So that is open through actually the end of fiscal year, which would be June 2020 technically. You can complete your FAFSA if you're planning on coming maybe winter or spring quarters. That's based on 2017 taxes. So not exactly what we're going to be talking about as far as tax data, but in general, it's pretty much the same as far as everything else. So great question. Hopefully that answered it. If not, type another question for me. All righty. So I wanted to go over the very basics. Where do I start this process? So for your 2020-2021 FAFSA, you're going to FAFSA.gov. Don't go to FAFSA.com. That you would have to pay for, and that's not the intention. This application is the free application for federal student aid. So you shouldn't be paying for anything. This is what your screen would kind of look like if you do navigate there. This FAFSA is based on the 2018 taxes. If you were doing the 2019-20, that would be on your 2017 taxes. If you have ever completed a FAFSA application before, you're going to want to choose that returning user login. If you have never completed a FAFSA, so new to the whole process, you can start here. It takes you pretty much to the same place, but it also gives you a little bit of a different view. Okay, so as far as goes. How you log in is what's called an FSA ID. So what this ID does is it's how you sign in, but also how you electronically sign the FASFA. So before, 4 or 5 years ago, it was the old PIN system. You had to type in a PIN. That's what I had to use when I was in school. Now this replaces it. It's a username, password, just like any other login interface you would see. With the FSA ID, it's crucial to understand that it is specific to you, who is the one filling out the FAFSA. So you are filling it out with your SSN, social security number, your date of birth, and your name. You need to have your own email. It's crucial that you do that. If you have never created a FSA ID, you're new to the process, when you log in, you're going to be taken to this screen. If you choose I am the student, where I've highlighted, you'll see that create one hyperlink, and that will allow you to create your FSA ID that you will be able to use in the future. If you have one, but maybe forgot it, clicking on the forgot username, forgot password, that's going to lead you to be able to reset everything based on your email address or your mobile phone number that you originally signed up with. Okay. To further explain that FSA ID completion, I want to just tell you again that legal name when you're doing your FSA ID is needed. So this is going to be whatever is on your social security card. A lot of people maybe even file their taxes with a different last name. Your legal name is what it will be used with, along with your social security number and date of birth. You want to make sure that you will always have access to the email you use. If you forget your username, you forget your password, it's going to ask you, hey, do you want me to send a secure code to your email address that you verified? And you're going to say yes, because I want to be able to re-access that FSA ID information. You can also input a mobile phone number if you have one. You don't have to, but if you do, it's good to go ahead and put that in and verify that number. So again, if you need to forget your username or you forget your password, you can always recover it by having them send you a text. I cannot stress this piece enough, writing down all of your information. So you have your username, your password, but you also want to write down your security questions and answers. I work with a lot of high school students and they tend to not write down that piece. Well, one of the questions that you could choose to answer is who's your best friend. That can obviously change from year to year. So you want to be able to remember at that point in time what you wrote down. Remember, it is case sensitive. Also, since we're working with adult students today, any student that creates an FSA ID, they will want to hang on to that because if their children in the future go to complete a FAFSA, they will have to sign it with that FSA ID that they already had created. So you want to make sure that you're remembering that because your child later on will thank you. All right. Household size. This is probably one of the most confusing aspects when you're doing your FAFSA application besides your taxes. Who do I include in my household size? So when you're filing your FAFSA, it's important to remember your household size is as of that date. When you are actually submitting that FAFSA, who is currently in your household and who are you supporting? So if you are married when you are filing the FAFSA, you're going to go ahead and indicate that. If you are separated, you're going to go ahead and indicate that in the date as well. Do know that if you're currently separated, but say in 2018 you were married, because that's how you filed married jointly, you will have to manually put in income for just yourself. You don't want to put in income for the household size that isn't necessarily the same. So you don't want to put in your ex-spouse information as well. If you have a question about this, see your financial aid office. They will be able to help and assist you with what numbers do I actually put in. Okay, your children. So when you're filling out the FAFSA application, the children are going to be the children you include who they receive more than half their support from you in that academic year. So if you have maybe a stepson who is just there on the weekends and you provide some child support for them, that may be necessarily not be someone who's in your household size. Also, you want to include any unborn children if they're going to be born within that academic year, because that is a child that you're going to be having while you're in school. Dependents. So this one often gets confused. My children are my dependents. Not necessarily for FASFA filing purposes. You're going to mark that you have dependents if you have people you are supporting that other than your children or spouse. So maybe it is your nephew that you have living with you and you have legal guardianship and you're providing full support for him. You are going to be including him as a dependent in your household size. All right. I also wanted to talk about child support paid, because this is also another one that I think we see probably a lot of errors on. So like I was saying before, for children in the household size, you're going to put in those children you support more than 50% of the time. If you're paying child support for someone, you can indicate that on your FAFSA, but you also cannot include them in your household size. So it's either one or the other. You say that you're paying child support in 2018 for that child, or you include them in the household. You can't have both. Number in college. That's going to be any dependent or child you have that you are claiming in your household size that will also be attending college in the same academic year as you. So you would include them and increase your number in college. All right, I do see a question that came in. What if you were divorced in 2018 and married now? Good question. If you are currently married, you would put in that you are married as of, say you got married August 2019. What you would then have to do, because in 2018 you probably didn't file your taxes together, you would have to include your taxes for 2018 and then add any additional income that maybe your current spouse had. So you would put your spouse income and any aggregate gross income, you would just combine them. Taxes paid, you would combine them for each of your guys' taxes. I hope that makes sense. If you have further questions with that or you want me to dive deeper, send a little chat. Okay, let's see a current example of a household size. Okay, Sally's going back to college. Sally and John are married and have 2 children, one each from a prior marriage. Sally's daughter lives with her and John full-time, and she receives $2,000 of child support for Liz in 2018. She received. John's son, Rob, lives with John every other weekend, and John pays child support to Rob's mother. In 2018, John paid $2,000 in child support to Rob's mother. Neither of these children will be in college during this school year. So who is really in the household size? I'll give you guys a second. All right, answer is going to be revealed. Sally, John, and Liz are in the household size. So there's 3 people that are going to be in that household size. Rob is not included in the household as he does not live with and supported over half-time by John. On the untaxed income section in the FAFSA, Sally would include that she receives child support for her daughter in 2018 and that she paid child support for Rob as she is married to John. Since Sally's the only one in college, there's only going to be 1 in college, so 3 members in the family with 1 in college. So this is going to be one instance where you can include child support paid and have children in the household, it just can't be the same child. So they're reporting the paid child support for Rob, but they're not including him in the actual household size. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you guys. I know that's kind of a complicated one, but we see it a lot. Okay, taxes. The fun part, not so fun part, but the part we got to do for your FAFSA application. So when you're filling out your FAFSA, it's going to say, do you want to link to the IRS? Yes, you do. What that does is it pulls in all your tax data from 2018 that you filed and fills it in. Then you don't have to input a single thing except your earned wages. So it's really nice feature. Not everyone will be able to do that. Kind of like before, the question was, if you were divorced in 2018 and married now, you're not going to be able to, unfortunately, use the data retrieval tool. Because if your marital status is different than 2018, you're not going to be able to use that. So that would be an instance where you would have to hand put in all of that information. You also wouldn't be able to use it if you filed a foreign return or a return with Puerto Rico or freely associated state. So question 35 is new for the 2020-2021 FASFA. It asks, did you file a Schedule 1 on your 2018 return? When you answer that, though, there are exceptions to where you may have filed a Schedule 1 return, but actually don't have to say yes to this question. So you would actually answer no if you did not file a Schedule 1, or if you only filed because of one of these below reasons. So if you received unemployment compensation, you probably filed a Schedule 1. You would actually say no to this question 35 on the FAFSA application, though, because you filed it and it's one of those exceptions. So that's kind of a little thing that we've been seeing a lot of students having questions on. So we wanted to really clarify that for you guys. Okay, earned wages. So a lot of times people may not know what to put as earned wages. Do I put my Social Security benefits? Do I put just what I worked? So I wanted to put this slide in here to kind of ease your guys' concern for question 38 and 39. Earned income is income that you have from working for both you and if you're married, your spouse. So a lot of times you can see this dollar amount on your W-2. And so here's an example of that. That box 1 that I have highlighted up there, that's an example of your wages. So that's what you would put in that earned income. And you would round up by traditional rounding rules. So if it's above 50 cents, you just round up to the next dollar. Also, if you own your own business, you may not have a W-2, but you still can report that as earned income. You worked the business. You can go ahead and report those profits as earned income. If you have any earnings that are negative, you're just going to want to use a 0. Don't put in the negative amount. Here's where you don't include your unemployment benefits and you don't include your workers' compensation. Those are reported elsewhere on your FAFSA, so you don't have to include that in this section right here. All right. So we're going to talk about assets. This is a question that I think a lot of people, especially adults, have questions on. Question number 41. What is the net worth of your investments? What you do want to include are all of your investments. So if you have stocks or bonds, you can include those. You can also include rental properties. So say you rent out a house to a family, it's not the house you live in, you would include the value of that. So what's the overall value minus what you owe, so a mortgage on it. That would be the amount that you include as an asset here. What you do not want to include is 401k as your retirement. That is not something we want you to include. We don't want you tapping into that to pay for your education, so do not include that 401k retirement. Also, don't include the value of the home that you live in. We don't want you selling your house to pay for your education. Do not include that in there. That is never the intention of this asset section. All right, looks like we have another question. In that last slide, Why were those other boxes highlighted in red? Okay, so I will go back. So this is actually something we take from a decoder, and it didn't have any personal identifying information. These are also boxes that can help indicate some untaxed income, but also a lot of that's going to be transferred from your taxes. Really, in box 12, what we care about is if you have anything listed in D, 12D, that's what we would really care about as far as untaxed pension amounts. Does that answer your question? I hope so. Okay, we're going to continue. Going back to this. Okay. Question 42. We're talking about value of business and farms. What you don't want to include is if you have a small business, you and your spouse work it, you control over 50% of that, and you have less than 100 employees. Don't include that value. Also for farm values, if you and your family live on that farm and you operate it, don't include that farm value. All right, for the investments you need to report. We have another question. Are you reporting the investments as of today or last? You're reporting your investments as of today when you're submitting your FAFSA. What is the value of your assets? So not in 2018. Hope that clarifies that question. Okay, finally, we are also to the other untaxed, other unreported income section for your FAFSA. What you do want to report in this area is workers' compensation. So if you're receiving LNI and things like that, you can go ahead and report that there. Untaxed foreign income, so maybe you just moved to the States and are going to college, but in the prior tax year you were somewhere else where you didn't have to file taxes. You can go ahead and report that income here in this section under U.S. currency. So you want to make sure that it's translating to what U.S. currency would be. Any disability benefits as well. What you don't want to include are Social Security benefits, Social Security income, or supplemental security income. That does not need to be included in here if it's untaxed Social Security benefits. If you have taxable amounts, that's going to be reflected in your taxes, so you also don't want to put it here as well. You also don't put any student aid or any kind of food assistance you may be receiving, things like that. We don't indicate that here. Any kind of TANF you may be receiving, that does not need to be included in your untaxed income. Okay. All right, before we switch over to Danielle, are there any other questions that you guys are dying to ask? Not seeing anything else that we haven't got to. So if you do, just put them in that chat box.
All right, you guys, you did the hard part of the FAFSA, which is your tax information, your household size, your assets. So now you're getting to the end where you're going to sign it soon, but you want to know where you're going to send your FAFSA. So you want to make sure that you know that the maximum amount of schools that you can send your FAFSA to is 10 schools. Each school will also ask about a housing if you're on campus, off campus, or with parent. They use that for your cost of attendance calculations that we'll cover in a little bit. Side note, you can only really receive financial aid at one institution at a time. So say you send your FAFSA to 5 different schools, you want to go to one of them, just make sure that you've applied for their application, or sorry, they applied for their admissions, and that you've sent your FAFSA to that school. Each school may reach out to you for additional paperwork. You also want to make sure that you, like I said a minute ago, you need to make sure you apply for admissions in order for school to have access to your FAFSA. A lot of schools, like so far for the falls, if we don't have an active application for admissions on file, your FAFSA won't load in. We won't even know you're trying to come here. So make sure to apply for admissions if you're wanting to go to that school that you sent your FAFSA to. Also, Greater Minds has a micro grant that can assist students in paying for application fees who have some college, no degree, and have not been enrolled in college within the last year. Also with that, they cannot pay any like repayments or any defaults for federal or state aid. It's just very specific for things that they can cover. So just make sure to also keep a track of any priority funding deadlines. All right, so here's the next one, which is common errors to avoid. You want to make sure not to leave anything blank on your FAFSA. Triple check all numbers prior to submitting. Your social security number, your driver's license number, your address number, anything where you had to enter something in manually, make sure that it's correct. Always use your legal name. Like Ashley said earlier, it must match what's on your social security card, not your nickname, not your legal name that was on your social security card. Also double check that you have the correct address and email address. Double check that your taxes paid value entered isn't the same as your adjusted gross income. That will throw an error that you will end up having to turn in more documents to cover for us to either fix or for you to have to fix later. Make sure you list the correct tax filing status. Also make sure that you list the correct marital status. Make sure to include any unborn children that you may have within the year, within the school year. Also make sure to count your SELF-IN number in college. So you might have a son or daughter who's going to college and you're going to college at the same time. Make sure to include yourself in that. Don't, though, include any running start students. One of the very foundation rules of receiving financial aid is that you are a high school graduate. So in order for us to count you as a number in college, you have to not be in running start. Or not just having your high school diploma, but you could also have your GED. Okay. Ensure that you are registered for selective service if you're a male. Between the ages of 18 to 26, you should have registered. If for whatever reason you didn't, or something you entered the country after the age of 26, there's other steps you'll have to go to. Your financial aid office will have that information. Also, don't forget to sign, date, and submit that FAFSA with your FSA ID. There's so many times that we have students who filled it all out, got it all filled out, and then thought they hit submit and they didn't. All right, so we have a question. It says, regarding the household size, in divorce situation where children live with you 50% of the time, can you count them? No support being paid due to 50-50.
This one's a hard one. What I usually advise people is when you go down, there's 365 days in a year, right? When you go down and you're going down to the last day, who would be in the household more? So if that's you, feel free, go ahead and add them to your household size. It's really hard with those 50-50 splits, but really to the day, if there's 365 days in a year, who's really going to be where? What child is going to be where? So that would be your parent of record.
Yeah. Basically, if your child was to fill out the FAFSA, which parent would they put on the FAFSA as their parent of record? That's whether or not you would include them in the household size, I would say. All right. I've also included here on this slide the Department of Ed's helpline, which is super helpful. If you have specific questions, are having a hard time with your FAFSA, sometimes there's a long wait, but it's definitely worth it once you get to a person. They're usually very, very nice. All right. So now you've submitted your FAFSA, and my school has notified me that I'm selected for verification. So this just means you didn't fill anything out wrong. It just means about 40% of students are selected for verification. It just means you have other extra forms to fill in per the school. So most important, don't turn in any verification forms unless they're requested. Sometimes it'll end up taking us longer to review your file because we have to clear up discrepancies that now with extra documents we have been created. So make sure you only turn them in if they're requested. Your school will let you know which forms that you need to turn in. If you did not use the data retrieval tool on the FAFSA, you may need to turn in your tax records. So as of about, I think 2 years ago, we started being able to accept the signed 1040. So as long as it's signed or has the tax preparer's their number on there, we can accept that as sufficient tax information documentation. You can also go to irs.gov or call that phone number there and get a copy of your tax return transcript for 2018. And if you didn't file taxes, you weren't required to file taxes. Usually, if you had any income from work but you didn't meet that threshold, your school will ask for your W-2 from that year and a proof of non-tax filing status. You can obtain that by completing the 4506T with the IRS, or you can give them a call. I've heard that you have a long wait line there, and we used to be able to send people down to the IRS office, but they pretty much will only let you go in there to print something if you have an appointment. So if that's the case, just make sure to get a hold of them before you head down there, because I don't want you to have to waste or have to go there twice. So also, side note, any changes, so say in 2018 you were full-time employee, had, you know, different income than you do now in 2020 when you're filling this out, or 2019 when you're filling this out. Any kind of change in circumstances, you'll need to contact your financial aid office to discuss what documents they need or what paperwork they may need. Usually, like for Spokane Falls, we go off of what you submitted on your FASFA first, award you based on that. Then we have you fill out some documentation and turn in your additional, like, current year-to-date information. But it's very specific to the institution about what they request for you to have that change in circumstances. All right, well, here's a sample of our portal for the falls. How do I check my financial aid status? So you don't want to have to call every day or figure out, you know, what's going on. You're more than welcome to call, but it's usually you can find this information on your own. Each school has a different view of their student center portal. Here's where you can see your financial aid financial aid awards, your required documents, messages that we may send out. We might send out a contact financial aid if we have a specific question regarding what we've already received from you. And this will also be where you get your cost of attendance information. You can also view and accept your aid here. And you'll see any to-do list items or holds or anything like that that may impact your ability to receive aid or register for classes. So, like I said, each school will have a different view, but this is ours. All right, so really important. This information is more for you to just have in your back of your mind when you're thinking about it. Okay, so this is your expected family contribution, or EFC. We happen to use a lot of acronyms. EFC, cost of attendance, COA. They won't mean anything to you if you don't know what they mean, though. So your EFC is the measure of how much the student or family can be expected to contribute to your cost of attendance, or COA, for the school year, and it comes from the information provided from the FAFSA. Your cost of attendance is the amount that it would cost to attend the college of your choice. So for the falls, we have put a resident cost of attendance here for the regular 9-month school year. It shows you that it's made up of tuition and fees, books and supplies, room and board, transportation, personal expenses. Department of Ed saying that per this area, per that school, it's going to cost potentially that much money to go here. That's not, you know, that's not tuition only. That's just saying these are the expenses that go along with going to school. So here's an example on the bottom where it shows you shows an example. Also, right above that, it says the financial aid need is determined by taking your cost of attendance minus your expected family contribution. So let's look at the example. So it says, Josie is a first-year in-state independent student living off campus with a household of 1. Her school determines her cost of attendance for the school year to be $19,137. Her submitted FAFSA shows her EFC is $3,917. Her financial aid need then is $15,220. Any need-based aid must fit within those parameters, and any non-need-based aid must fit within her cost of attendance. So your grants, work study, your aid that's determined based on needs, scholarships and such, has to fit within that $15,000 amount. Now that EFC, that $3,917, isn't your like out-of-pocket bill. It's just saying that out of the total budget or your cost of attendance, Department of Ed reasonably thinks that this student can contribute $39.17 to that. So a lot of times that number kind of is an intimidating number. I'm trying to let it make it be less intimidating for you. All right, so let's go over what financial aid is. So you've done your FAFSA, everything's in. Here's the different types of aid I can go over with you. So financial aid are any funds toward your education that you yourself do not provide. The FAFSA is just the first step. So yeah, so the different types of aid are, there's a federal Pell Grant, you have the Washington College Grant, which was formerly Washington State Need Grant, federal student loans, federal and state Workstudy, any other institutional grants. Students can seek out private grants and scholarships to help meet their educational needs. They're just self-seeking and they're not automatically reviewed from your financial aid office. So the great thing about grants is they're free money and it's not money that has to be repaid. So for the most part, you don't have to repay it unless if you don't attend, and there's some things that we have to do for that. But for the most part, grants are not money that you have to pay back. They come in 3 different sources, which would be your federal, state, and institutional. Federal Pell Grant has a lifetime 6-year or 600% eligibility. State has 15 quarters of maximum eligibility, which is equivalent to about 5 years. And then institutional is based on the institution of, each school has their extra funds that they can give out to students to help with their financial aid. Yeah, their financial aid package. All right, so then we also have Workstudy. So in order to qualify for Workstudy, like Ashley and I mentioned earlier, we were both Workstudy recipients, and then we got great experience here in the financial aid. Anyways, in order to qualify, you must complete your FAFSA early. It's one of our very first funds that we run out of. We have more students who want it than we have dollars for that. So you also have to have a financial aid need. We discussed that earlier. You also need to make sure that you marked yes on your FAFSA, that you are interested in Workstudy. So again, the advantage is that you gain work experience, you earn money, and income is reported on your tax return, but excluded for financial aid eligibility. So it doesn't count against you. State and institutional Workstudy may be available at your campus. Once we review your file, we just determine, your institution determines which Workstudy you're eligible for. So another type of money that is not money that has to be paid back is scholarships. They are self-seeking. Make sure that, here's some examples of places you can search for scholarships. So your your college's scholarship office or college's foundation office, they have, where to go, what to fill out, what you'll need per each scholarship. Also counselors, community organizations, and local businesses. Washboard.org is a great site for that as well. Then also Washington State Opportunity Scholarship is a fairly new scholarship that they're offering up to $1,500 a quarter, as long as your path for the courses that you're taking are toward a high demand trade in healthcare or a STEM career. Definitely worth checking out if that's the path you're taking. Important information to have ready is a statement of accomplishments and goals, letters of recommendation, copies of high school transcripts and college transcripts, and also make sure that your FAFSA is filled out. A lot of scholarships are need-based, and they do require this so that they can determine that need eligibility. So money that does have to be paid back is loans. So for our office, for Spokane Falls rather, we offer 2 types of loans. The subsidized, which is a need-based loan. It doesn't accrue interest while you're in school, as long as you're attending at least half time and you are attending. Again, it's need-based, and if you started taking out loans after July 1st of 2013, the subsidized usage limit applies, which is basically up to 150% of your degree. So if you have a normal 2-year AA degree here at the Falls, you have basically 3 years of subsidized eligibility in order to qualify for that type of loans. If it takes longer than that, then you'll just basically be offered to your eligibility, and then the difference is unsubsidized. So unsubsidized loans, you can usually borrow at higher amounts, but they do rack up interest from the second that they disperse to you. So that's also good to know in the back of your mind when you're taking like unsubsidized loans. I would recommend taking them out if it's like the last choice. So just as a side note here, we have the undergrad limit for dependents is $31,000. That's not per year, that's the the aggregate limit that you can have, meaning the maximum amount you can have. Of that 31,000, 23,000 of it can be within the subsidized limits. And then for independent student, that number goes up to $57,500. And that's also for students who are dependent who don't have, like their parents were denied for a PLUS loan, which is different loan for parents to take out. Alternative loans are self-seeking through institutions. So ones we've done here at the Falls, we've had like Discover loans, we've had Wells Fargo, we've had Sallie Mae. Yeah, those are all, like I said, they're self-seeking. They send us certifications. They're based off of credits, credit scores and such. Also, just know that if you have any prior defaults on any loans, you will not be eligible for any financial aid until that default's taken care of. You'll want to make sure to contact your loan servicer so we can make sure that you so anything that you need to do, if you need to make payments or you need to set up a deferment or whatnot, you do that before you plan on taking out more loans. All right, so any questions, concerns, anything like that?
We want to give you guys some, I know we've been answering them as they kind of come in, but do we have any that we can maybe unmute you guys and you guys want to talk about it? Oh, I just realized I applied for financial aid for the 2020-21 rather than 2019-20, and I plan on starting spring 2020 at SFCC. I will apply for the correct one today, but this will affect me later when I need to reapply. So no, you're just one step ahead. So doing your 2020-2021 FAFSA now is great. Just make sure when we start emailing you about next year's stuff, you're letting us, you're turning in documents for that. Priority funding deadline for us for the next year's start is going to be in April time. But if you're coming in spring quarter, make sure that you do that 2019-2020 FAFSA, but also make sure that you just get in all the paperwork we're requiring by February 8th, I believe, is our priority funding deadline for spring 2020. So make sure you just get that in. Once you do your 2019-20 FAFSA, we'll send you out an email with all the paperwork we need, or you can come in and see us. It takes us about 3 to 5 business days to get a FAFSA application for this current school year we're in. So just come up and see us or give us a jingle. Hopefully that helped you. Anything else that we can answer for you guys? Ease concerns? Hopefully you guys took away something with being able to effectively do your FAFSA, and it's not as daunting. Do you guys do appointments or do you do walk-ins? Open on weekends. So we don't do appointments. It's just you come in, walk in, and see us. We are open Monday through Friday, 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. But you can always also, if you have questions, we can answer some questions via email, not a whole lot if it's with personal identification information.
And just so you know, like the people that are at the front desk are, at least our front desk are, program specialists just like Ashley and I. Ashley and I do do some customer service time on the front desk. So, I mean, you could end up talking to us if you come in those hours. But the people that are out there are fully trained on financial aid, and those are the people who are also answering the phones. We are all here to help. So my daughter attends SCC, and we need to do the FAFSA for her. Can you help, or does she need to go to SCC? So we can help answer any general questions that you may have. But if you're very specific, what do we need as far as paperwork and all that kind of stuff, we won't necessarily know, even though it is our sister school. We won't necessarily know what the student exactly needs until, because it's not our school. So if you have general questions on how to fill out that FAFSA application or anything like that,
definitely let us know here. We can answer generally, but always see that SEC financial aid officer grade over there and can really get you taken care of as well. Okay, if you have more questions, feel free to type away.
While we're waiting for more questions, I'd just like to thank you guys so much for your time today. I learned a ton from this conversation. I have a question, actually. My question is, let's say you have a student that is in college and you have already created a FASFA and they have a number and everything, and you want to go back to school. Do you use their number? Because I heard you guys say it the reverse way, so I just wondered, because some people...
Yeah, so if you've done a FAFSA for your child and you've used an FSA ID before to sign theirs, it's the same one for if you were to do your own FAFSA. So yes, it is the same ID.
Great.
Yes.
Well, we'll wait one more minute to see if anyone has another question. And if not, I want to be respectful of people's times. I know that people have places to go and things to do. This webinar, a recording of it that was started late, will be on the Greater Minds website in the Know section. If you haven't visited there, we have all the past webinars that we've done with our partners on that site. Again, it's greaterminds.org and at the Into Know section of the website. Thank you guys so much for everyone that attended. Reach out to any of us if you have any questions following this webinar, and we'll be happy to help. Thanks again, Ashley and Danielle. We really appreciate you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, and great questions, guys. Thank you so much.
Okay, everyone have a great day.
You
Goodbye.
too.
Thank you.